is an elder. So, Mr. Later after this, we'll meet in my office. But let me continue.
Thank you.
It's so sad that even NBC, they have 0 overhead and 0 capital. It's very sad. And I think we need to be very sincere on this issue. The nation's media is our image. And as soon as we don't have indigenous picture, image making by ourselves, I think we're getting it very wrong. Nobody will report about us. We don't expect BBC, we don't expect Al Jazeera or any other country to talk about our content. I think it will be a step forward and 2 steps backward if we neglect our own media houses. I would like to cite an example. I know that as in Jos, I provided solar energy for NTA Network Center to avoid diesel and provide them with light. But I believe that NTA should go beyond that. I don't know, Mr. Committee, even if you look at the structure of your salary for the media, I think we need to really look into the issue of media. The salary is not too good. And if you look at the exposure of the staff of the media houses, and they are not encouraged, if we're not making the job attractive, I don't think it is fair. We are not chairman, we are holding forth for appropriation committee, but I think all of us, I watch the screening of the ministry, and I watch the contributions of Senator Ashimola, I watch my brother, the Senator Samson, but I believe that we're speaking truth. There is no way we can have an image if we will not be the one reporting about ourselves. So your requests are seen from the previous activity. I hope that each ministry and agencies have applied themselves for this additional money, because we need a letter from them, the ministry asking for more and justifying why they need more. I've seen the attachment before, but I think they would want a written letter-headed letter to the appropriation committee for onward processing. But we are talking very loudly here so that I think all of us need to support the Ministry of Information. Things have to be changed. I don't need to speak alone. I would give opportunity for people to make contributions.
Wholeheartedly support the recommendations made by the committee chairman on the increase in the budgets, especially the capital elements as recommended in his report. But I want to draw attention to a further gap in the envelope system that we are now following. You see, Mr. Chairman, if the various government agencies had performance being measured against KPIs, key performance indicators, then that would put to task the government having to provide them with the equipment, with the infrastructure that they need in order to meet those KPIs. One must then wonder how any of these institutions can meet their set KPIs with little or no capital at their disposal, especially when you compare the capital, the infrastructure available with their direct competition in the private sector, both locally and globally. So, Mr. Chairman, I want to support on that note the recommendations for capital increase, but also that for future budgets, all the agencies should prepare budgets against performance indicators, because that immediately highlights the gap in the capital that they have applied for. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
My colleague, distinguished Senator and Chair of the Ministry of Information. A couple of committees, including yourself, has made this point about the challenge posed by the envelope system. And in most cases, most committees want us to exit, want the government to exit from the envelope system. For me, the wrong assumption is that if you remove the envelope system and allow everybody to ask for what he or she thinks he wants in their agencies, the pressure is that Nigeria has unlimited resources available to be spent. Just to remind all of us as senators that earlier in the year, or late last year, we approved over $2 billion US to be borrowed by federal government to fund budget. And we listened to the public reaction each time we approve of those huge numbers to be borrowed. And they think we are mortgaging the future of the country by borrowing more and more. But the truth is, you need to borrow. But when you borrow and use it in a manner that when our children are paying it back, they will see what the money was used for. If we borrow for propaganda, we borrow for doubtful activities, that is not the kind of debt I want to pass on to my grandchildren. And we are all here. When last did you hear the Minister of Information robustly defending government policies? The way one Mr. Maku used to do during President Jonathan. For me, I learned nothing from the Minister of Information about what government is doing. It's not about going to attend a press briefing after council meeting. It's robustly defending and projecting what the government need to do. I don't see that coming from the Minister of Information. Number two, when you see 000, what you didn't tell us is, how did they survive that year? How did they survive? There must be a reason that somebody came to the conclusion that they didn't need this funding. But this year, I see, for example, page sorry. I see, for example, Nigeria Press Council. It was 0 last year, 2024, and this year you're asking for 400 million. How did they survive last year without oxygen? They must have survived. There must be a reason why they were denied. And what is the reason for including them now? Because in one of our general, Chairman, sir, in one of our general conversation with the Finance Committee, I think there was one agency that at that judgment, we said they should be deleted from federal allocation because we discovered they generate much more than they need. They pay a token to Federation account, and then they generate more for themselves. And they agreed that they generate enough to meet their running costs. We have to consciously cut costs. So Nigeria, as I said yesterday, and I think it's bears repeating, we are under envelope. We cannot spend more than Nigeria earn in revenue. And we cannot spend based on borrowing more and more. What is the capital element? Nobody really speaks to it. Now, the credibility of a station to generate revenue depends on the content of their broadcasting. So, other private TV stations are running on advertorials. They are not getting government funding. And people are glued to watching them every morning, every evening. What can NTA do differently to attract more viewers? If it makes itself an incredible station that people think, don't go to NTA, you can predict what they are going to say. That is not good for them. Why the people listen to Hausa BBC, as you were talking about, is because of the content of their broadcasting. They think that they are probably more truthful. It is good to defend government. I mean, BBC is owned by British government. They are not allowed to even take advert. But BBC know where to draw the line such that you want to watch BBC 1, BBC 2, BBC 3, and they're there. So my last conclusion, Chairman, is all of us, myself inclusive, I told those who appear before our Committee on Interior, when they talk about the envelope system, if you remove the envelope, does that bring to Nigeria all the resources we need? So I think you should, we should, as National Assembly, they have to appropriate, encourage our people to understand that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has told the country repeatedly that he's tried to fetch a bucket of water from a very dry well. What that means is that the days of money is not the problem, it's gone. Nigeria now must reasonably demand that for every small bucket of water that the president draw from the dry well, these are his words, they cannot be thrown away the way it used to be. There can be no renewed hope if we throw money into non-essentials. So I think you have to advise your management to restructure. I see here, for example, the money appropriated for National Orientation Agency. I think I see here 30.4 billion naira. And that is personnel. Yeah, but it's all, when you hire somebody, it's because he has a job to do for you. So you are spending this on personnel. Overhead, 615. Capital, 455. And total, 14 billion. And a recommendation for capital increase. For NIO, you are recommending 40.9, more or less 41 billion naira. Where will the money come from?
Thank you, distinguished.
So I think, Chair, that as much as we are all, we will wish that, as I say, if the wishes were us, his purpose will right. But Nigeria is broke. And we should be careful in saying, open the envelope, let everybody spend as they want. I think that the envelope system should be defended. And I stand by the envelope system, personally.
My dear colleagues,
Did you record it?
the presenter and your team, let me commend the chairman, Senate Committee on Information and his team for a detailed work, as it were, and the insights that he has brought to bear on the management of information system and the need for reviewed appropriation, as it were. Information is key to national building. Information is key in evaluating our value system. It's very clear that as a democracy, we explore areas where we can use information to strengthen our democracy. And of course, in strengthening democracy, we also strengthen good governance. Because the challenge that third world countries face, and we are just one of the emerging economies, is the challenge of democracy and good governance. So we can use information to enhance good governance. To this extent, the components of this budget, as outlined by the committee, are commendable, as it were. On the envelope system, I think the concern of the Senate is not the envelope system as it were. The concern rather is how we can use a needs assessment framework to make the envelope system more effective and functional. So I think the emphasis is on a needs assessment framework or spectrum in such a way that a true meaning, a true face is given to the envelope system as it were, to avoid abuse and then really focus on our priorities as its way. Where I need to also put in some insight is the need for creativity by the information apparatus, as it were. How do private media, run their outfits? To me, if I may add to what my in-law, Your Excellency, said earlier, I think information has to fulfill its mandate in, how do I put it, in getting even government to be alive to its responsibilities. Some questions answered by those who run our information apparatus, properly answered, can end them a sack. The MD or whoever runs our private media outfit, the more he asks or she asks those questions, the greater his or her chances for promotion. That is to say, we must move beyond sycophancy. The operators of information apparatus, yes, we have to promote the activities of government. Yes, we have to help drive the system. But the truth we must say is that managers of information, official government information, have to ask the right questions when they should ask the right questions. Shorn of sycophancy, shorn of fear of being sacked if they ask those questions. The more you ask those questions, the more credible your organization, because that will also help to ramp in revenue for them. So I think there may be need for some kind of paradigm adjustment, if I may say, in terms of refocusing. But I'm fully in support that we have to give full value and support to our information apparatus. We need to provide incentive. We need to assist them get the right enabling environment, because information is power. There's no better way for us to entrench our democracy than for us to have a functional information apparatus. We need to do that. Where they are underfunded, where they are not properly situated, then there is a weakness and there's pressure on our value system. There's no better way for us to drive our value system than for us to have a properly funded and functional information system in the country. To this extent, I am persuaded to agree with the tenor of requests made by this committee and to appeal to our committee to be minded to taking their request very serious. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're welcome. Questions raised by distinguished Senator Adams Oshomole, and I want to just briefly talk on those. Number one is, I have not seen the information minister defending the policies of the government. As a committee oversighting this sector, we've carefully followed this ministry, and I want to tell you, sir, that the minister have performed his job creditably well. And that will go to tell you the level of stability we have in our information space, the media space. Considering the level of economic decadence and our level of challenges in this country, there should have been more agitation in that area. But because the information ministry have been able to disseminate the information and drive the policies of the government, people are really beginning to understand that government is doing much in trying to ameliorate the suffering of the people. So the minister have done very well. All he needed is a support to do this job. And when you come to content creation, it comes with a price. For you to get the best brain, you need to fund it. And that's why one of the most costliest properties is intellectual property. And when you get the best brain to create content for you, it comes with a price. And that is why there's need for more funding in this sector. And when you say, how do those giving zero allocation survive? That is why their case is very pathetic, and there's need for this committee to look into it. Last year, I can authoritatively tell you that Press Council could not pay salary. I oversighted that, and on a rented apartment, for government agency to be on a rented apartment, and they couldn't pay. So it is that pathetic. So they are not surviving. They're just aching out of life, and that is why this appropriation committee need to do something and do it very urgently. It's a pathetic case. Of course, I equally wonder how are they surviving. It's not a revenue-generating entity. They are there to regulate the press, the activities of the press and the media, and they are not generating. And when you come to National Broadcasting Corporation, they regulate the electronic media. And in regulating the electronic media, they are expected to generate revenue. But I can tell you that they have over 100 cases in the court. None of these media are paying because they will normally take them to court. And we are looking at their act to see how we can help them. The National Assembly can help them so that all these backlog of cases that is frustrating them from performing their duties will be reduced. And I know that the repayment bill and amendment will be coming to the National Assembly to help reduce the court cases. So I can tell you that these agencies need maximum support to perform their duties. How can they perform their duty? You mentioned about the personnel component of the NOAA. NOAA have 774 offices across the country. They have offices in every local government. If I would challenge you, sir, you can visit your own office in your own local government and check the NOAA office. See how dilapidated those offices are. Some of them all their agencies, all their staffs have retired and no replacement. So this industry, this agency need maximum support to perform their duty. I can tell you the days of Mansa have vehicles across all the local government to perform their duties. Today, there is no functional vehicle in any of the NOAA office across the country. How can they perform their job? If you want an agency start to perform that, you provide the tools that will enable him to do this job. It is obvious that we can't function without funds. How can we compete with private entities? The private entities are well funded. They pay better. How much is the staff, the salary of staff of NTA? How much are they being paid? Compare with the private media stations and know if anybody that has something to offer would want to go to NTA. That is why they have the best brain to create the content. It is for a fee. And that's why we are here before this committee to ask that these agencies be properly funded. And we've made recommendations. And if we want to look at it critically, we know truly that these people have not done badly. NTA has their international stations, is on. We are not saying that they're not performing, but they need to be encouraged to do this job better. They are doing very well, and you can agree with me, you tune their station, the content are rich and encouraging, but they need to be competent. They need to compete with the other media of their status. That is what we are saying. And when you come to Press Council, the thing we say, how did they survive? I've mentioned it. They were removed based on Rasanya report. And when they brought their need assessment and their recommendations, they were returned back to budget. That is why they are here, and they have backlog of salary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I still insist that this recommendation will media be looking to for the national interest. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm happy you measure Edo State, and I go to Edo quite often, like you go to your state quite often. They are there, but I can tell you I have not heard anything, any spoken, written, or anything from those people in Edo to reorientate those who are disoriented. It's about national orientation, isn't it? So it's not about being. My problem is you don't create institutions that are not going to add value. That is my point. If we must appropriate 1 naira and employ 2 persons, at the end of the day, we must say this is what we achieve as a consequence. But people are just there. So in your state, have you heard Noah talking? In my state, they are not.
Okay.
Whether their building is dilapidated or not, I don't know where you started life. Some of us started life living in dilapidated buildings. But we continue working to earn and to grow and to prosper. So we mustn't treat government agencies, they just think that they exist by law and they have to do this. Even the argument over what is the correct national item, whether Nigeria shall or may, those are not settled. I still go to places, I see people or hear people singing different variants of the national item. Those are just very basic things.
Thank you. Noah has come up with the, hasn't gotten to your office. I know that they shared it to almost every office. Yeah. Thank you. And on that note, let me tell you, it is part of lack of funding. I know Noah is doing very well. If you go on the air, if you look, you will see the agendas going on. I know Noah is working, but when it comes to your local government, how can they function? How can they go to the interior part when they have no means of going to those areas to reach out to the people? We are talking about sensitization. We are talking about orientation. The content has to be created. But I know they are doing well. They are trying, but they need to be encouraged, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The information subsector, in order to discharge their responsibility adequately and to compete favorably with their peers, especially NTA. There is need to adequately fund NTA in order to compete favorably with its peers in the private sector, and also project positively the image of Nigeria across the globe. And for them to properly project the image of Nigeria, they have to compete with South African Broadcasting Corporation, BBC, CNN, and what have you. So there is need for them to have all the modern tools in order to perform that duty. In that wise, I think there is need to adequately fund them. With regard to National Orientation Agency, there is need also to adequately fund this agency. As you said, when it was MAMSA, I know we have MAMSA Brigade, youths are participating, they have offices across the nooks and crannies of the country. They are preaching about value reorientation, discipline, and what have you. But all these things have gone now. It's because of lack of funding that they cannot discharge their statutory mandate. So I agree with you. But have you gotten all these requests in writing?
Yeah, it is. It will be submitted.
Or submit it to the Secretariat. Okay, submit it to the Secretariat. Okay, thank you.